everybody. It's November 24th, 2022. This is WESN, and on WESN, this is AM Prime. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for being with us. Let's tell you what's happening in this hour and a half. We'll be talking in the second hour of the program with the German ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, Ute Koenig. And that's about the Germany's commitment to addressing the concerns of countries like ours, developing countries, having to do with global warming. And they're talking about Germany's climate change program and how that will affect the Caribbean. We'll get to that in a moment. As I said, we're continuing a discussion we began last week, this time, with Ms. Grace Lefoury. She's the president of the Society of Planners in Trinidad and Tobago, and she's been lamenting what she says is an absence of the monitoring the fact of people getting licenses to build anywhere and anyhow, and that is a serious contributor to flooding across the country. We'll continue that discussion with her. We'll take you around the region and further afield as time permits. But right now, in our midst, Karen is to share the news pages on the papers this morning. On the front pages, the story that took place in the courts yesterday. She and her team had challenged the way in which the elections in the ruling People's National Movement had to be conducted over 3 days. They had issues about safety and security and about sincerity and honesty. People who were going to man that and man the boxes after the elections take place on these 2 days and then leading into the party's convention. The matter was not successful in the court, but if you see her in the Zoom, you will see that she's not despondent. She's not been thrown off a rack for it. The judge did say that there are matters to be gone into. Nevertheless, it didn't qualify for that kind of attention. She's agreed to speak with us on it this morning, as they call it, the morning after. Good to see you.
That's one good way of putting it, and happy to be with you. I guess I'm a trooper, and I guess that's what you required. And thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how do you feel? How did you feel when you got the decision?
Well, okay, so the first thing we will say is, it's a good thing that we have a democracy and a judicial system, so that my lawyers, because they say a lawyer who has himself as a client as a fool for a client.
Yes.
Yes, well, I'd like not to think that I'm a fool. I might mean other things, but maybe not a fool. But in any event, so they're working assiduously on filing an appeal, and that's all part of the justice system. And one wonders why one would do that. So just as briefly as I can put it,
yes.
The case, and I respect the judge, let me just say that immediately, but as we know, that's why we have an appeal court system, because one may find that the decision may find a different ruling as we go up the hierarchy of the judicial system. So let's just put it in that context. But I think what was the issue and the reason why, and I prefer that my lawyer spoke on it, although I know I am a lawyer, but the issue therefore was the question of granting injunctive relief. And a relief injunction is not deciding the substantive matter. It is like granting a compensation. Well, in this case, when you go for injunction, it's because you're saying the damages would not suffice, and that has been established. And what you call an interlocutory injunction, meaning an injunction before the hearing of the substantive matter. So the substantive matter has not been heard. And the substantive matter is whether Article 18.1, which says that you can hold an election day, whether the General Council in the Constitution of the PNM establishes 1956 had the authority to, in effect, extend the election day procedure to 3 days, not counting the usual day for the polling agents to vote. That's the norm. And whether they had that authority or whether they should have, I think it's Article 17.4, but don't hold me to the actual article. Yeah. But the article does say that the supreme body of the movement is the annual convention, and it is only the annual convention that can amend the Constitution. So the question that we had raised as a substantive issue, which has yet to be decided and has not been decided, is whether or not the General Council had the authority to extend it from 1 day to effectively 3 days, particularly given the practice of the party to always have the election on 1 day, and the statement which is included in our statement of case of the chairman, where he says we are going to try to mirror what the EBC does, and EBC certainly does not have an election over so many days. And I think one of the things that was not clear, but that is for the substantive matter, whilst the PNM has over 100,000 members, the records show even when they went from a delegate to a one-man, one-vote, the maximum number of persons that voted was 14,000. If the EBC, if they want to mirror, can conduct an election in 1 day, we wonder why 3 days. But the most important thing is this, and this is from me having, unfortunately, to have to deal with the legal part of it. There was a case, and I tried to get the pronunciation right, even though I taught equitable remedies when I was at the Faculty of Law, and it dealt with an interlocutory injunction or interim injunction, which is an injunction to stop you from doing something until the hearing of the substantive matter.
Right.
And one of the major considerations, they said, American Sayadamida, I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly, that idea of balance of convenience was thrown out as being the deciding factor, so to speak. And we had cases from our Court of Appeal, which we are going to rely on and which the other side would be very well aware of. One of them is Jetpack Services Limited versus BWIA, and East Coast Drilling case, and which have been both of which have been under the National Commercial Bank case. But starting, of course, with the Jetpack case, in which it was a Court of Appeal decision of our then Chief Justice Michael de Labastide. And why I quote that and why that is critical is that what it says is that the issue is not balance of convenience, because, if damages cannot compensate you, then that you can't go for injunctions if you could be compensated by money. So money is not going to compensate us for what we're doing. The question is not balance of convenience, it's irremediable injustice. And the factor they look at is whether the party, in our case the claimant, has a good case, has a prima facie case, has a serious case to be answered in the substantive matter. And the general principle is that if that is the case, then you would grant the interim injunction, because if it's a poor case, a weak case, they're not going to grant the interim injunction. And I just want to read from the judgment of the judge himself, because that I think is important, so that you don't have my words, but you have his words. He said, the case therefore turns on the construction to be found to Article 18.1, which is found to be relevant and determinative of the applicability of a constitutional provision, overturns the application of Article 23 and the authority of the General Counsel as submitted. He says the court is unable at this stage to come to a definitive finding as to the intention of the Constitution at Article 18. If it applies, then it sees it may require amendment at the annual convention. If it does not apply, then the argument in relation to an established practice of the election spanning just 1 day would not be sufficient, having regard to the power invested in the General Counsel under Article 23. And then he said, it is clear from the authorities that the court must look at the Constitution itself, along with the background factors, to reach the decision as to what is meant by Article 81. But this is the key thing. This is the key, and this is the clause 29. In those circumstances, the court is of the respectful view that there is an issue to be tried, an issue which is more than just fanciful, but what is a real one for determination. Therefore, the claimants have cleared the hurdle of having a serious question to be tried. So once we heard that, to be very honest with you, and given the decisions, I'm not my lawyer, in the cases of Jetpack and all of that, one came to the conclusion at that point in time, once he said that, then he would not he would have granted us our interim injunction, because a key issue is irremediable injustice. And one of the critical factors, they moved away from the British, and even the British case, I actually quoted Lord Denning on that. And Lord Denning, that was a famous case, and Lord Denning had said in Fellows and Son, because remember I am a lawyer too, versus Fisher, if it is a weak case, if a weak case is met by a strong defense, the court may refuse to grant an injunction. But if the plaintiff makes out a prima facie case, the court may grant an injunction. So we were of the view that the judge himself said that we did have not only a fanciful case, but we had a strong case, which is on a substantive issue. And the practice has been since the jetpack case, and then you have Eastern Coastal Link case and other cases, that the practice has been that once they're satisfied that you have a prima facie case, a strong case that has to be answered at the substantive hearing, then one should grant the interim injunction.
Right. So that is the basis on which the appeal will be filed, and so this appeal has to be filed like now, and because we
correct. But what I wanted people to understand that we respect the court, and we respect the judge, and he himself, I think, at one point says he knows this will go to another place. So I just want to say that because it's important for me to say that, because when I came home, I had to ponder upon it, as I would have to. And I said to myself, ultimately, this is really not about me, even if they want to make it about me. Well, I mean, I don't blame them. That's what I guess I would do if I was on the other side. But what I do want them to understand is really about what is good for the party and the parties in Trinidad and Tobago, and ultimately for the country, because we are not trying to solve the issue. We are going through the judicial system. And I think the judge himself, by making that statement and the case law behind it, gives us a strong basis to go forward. I think he came to his conclusion based on the fact he said that we delayed in making an application. He also looked at the question of cost, and he also said that he was not satisfied that we had given enough evidence that they had not secured the boxes adequately. I don't know, but I don't want to, I don't want to pronounce, I guess, because I certainly don't want to be held in contempt of the court. But what I would say is the critical issue was whether he felt that there was a case to be tried, a serious case. He said it. He didn't say a fanciful case. He said a serious case to be tried. And if that is what he said, then if he is being guided by the decisions of the Court of Appeal in our country, then that would have, to me, overturned his concerns about delay, which I don't want to argue that at this point. It doesn't make sense. I'm not going to. Or cost, I'm not going to argue that. I'm just going to stick to that point. And if that is his reasoning stated at, I believe I told you the clauses 28 and 29, then in the face of the Court of Appeal decisions, which I have mentioned, then that would mean sufficient cause for him to say, you know what, let's delay this until the substantive issue is settled, because yes, they have a case. Yes, there is an issue to be answered. Does the General Counsel have the authority to change it from 1 day to 3 days, or should it have been done by the annual convention, which is the absolute authority of the movement, and which only they can amend the Constitution? So he did think that we had a case to be answered, and we were a little bit taken aback by his decision, but that is his right as a judge. And we're just going to appeal.
Isn't it kind of counterintuitive if he says that there are issues to be dealt with, but he's not dealing with it? Then who should deal with it?
But he couldn't deal with it. Remember, as he says, this is what I hope I can make, and it's not for your benefit, and because I know you probably know it very well. When you're dealing with an injunctive relief or damages, it's a remedy for a cause of action. Yeah. So an injunction is not a cause of action. It sometimes, as even Lord Denning said in that very famous case, he says sometimes when you hear an interlocutory injunction, by the time you hear it, 99% of cases are decided on the merit of it. So, but what we have to realize, what they decided wasn't that we did not have a case, because he said we had a case. at least a serious case to be answered.
Right.
He admitted, he said that. What he says, which we found was, didn't seem to follow the trend of the law, but I mean, I'm respecting the judge. He went and talked about delay and cost and those things as a basis for not granting the injunction. And to us, the critical and crucial decision, irremediable justice, and a crucial decision based on the Court of Appeal decisions which have been followed, what they call locus classicus, that have been followed since 1998, is whether or not the party has made out a serious case to be tried. And he said we did. So if you say that in one breath, it seems to me then,
I'm glad
I'm
glad you put it that way, because I can't mean any disrespect to the judge, but for somebody on the street, this is the kind of thing you would say that somebody's talking through both sides of their mouths.
But let me just say this, and I do have a lot of respect for Justice Rampersad, but there was a member of the media who I respect a lot, and certainly is not for or against us, but I was impressed because I was sitting in the back listening, and that person said, but I don't understand. How could he at one breath be saying they have a serious, and they wrote it down, and I actually wrote it down, but I have, thankfully somebody sent me the actual decision, so I don't have to rely on that. But they did say, as a lay person, but how could you be saying in one breath that this is not a fanciful case, there's a serious case to be tried, and then in the other breath saying you're not giving injunction because delay, costs, and all of that? I mean, the issue is not that. That is not what, in my understanding, the jetpack, and in my understanding, what East Coast drilling, all of these are the locus classicus that the courts have applied in interlocutory injunctions, whether or not to grant them. And following even Lord Denning in his famous American cyanamide case, which I did teach equitable injunctions many years ago at the Faculty of Law, how could you then be saying on record that we do not have a fanciful case? There is a question to be answered, whether the General Counsel had the authority to do what it did, or whether to extend it beyond one day, they needed to go to the Supreme Body, which is the only body that can amend the Constitution. So he did agree that we had a case, and it was a serious case to be answered. So we could not come to terms ourselves personally with having said that. Then it seemed to follow, then you'd have to grant the interim injunction. Well, he didn't. So even the person who was sitting there and is not a lawyer said, but to understand this, he's saying one thing in one breath, and then he's saying the other thing in the other breath.
So let's talk about the appeal.
Listen.
Let's talk about the appeal. The appeal has to be...
That's the appeal.
So, and has to be filed now. Yeah, has to be filed post-haste.
Yes, it's going to be done today. And I think the judgment helped us a lot, because he did deliver the written judgment, which is very helpful. And I would say to the other side, that is to the persons, the lawyers representing Cummings, and again, the judge said no, he didn't agree that he could not be in a representative capacity. He threw that out. There's a Christina Angelou case, so he said that argument didn't hold water. This is an unincorporated society. This is not force on our bottle where you're dealing with a company. So he did not think that he absolutely, which we were happy about, that he said, no, we could do what we did, and we could, in a representative capacity, not against him personally, but representing the PNM, that was nothing, that was correct and nothing was wrong with that as an unincorporated society. So that procedural defect, if you want to call it that, he didn't think it held water. So yes, we're going forward, and we want the public to know that this is no disrespect to the judge. We are looking at what the judge himself said, and we're looking at what the case has said and the reason he gave. And we hope that at the end of the day, as far as we have to go, we will go. But it will never be about me. Hopefully, at the end of the day, even if persons are angry and they're spinning the story as they should could, and I mean, I don't know if I would have done the same thing, to be honest. At the end of the day, we'll get an answer, and we'll all know what is, hopefully all parties, not only ours, but all other political parties will be guided, especially if it reaches as far as the Privy Council, which we hope it doesn't need to, but if it does, well, we're prepared to do that.
Right. So to what extent there's a part of you and the people on your team with holding the view that whatever happens, the fact that this thing became so public, whatever happens in the court, that will create a situation in which the conductors of this election will make sure that things go in a way that it should, that would sort of assuage the sense of anxiety that you'll feel about what can go wrong.
Well, I mean, if in fact the benefit of this would be that greater care and greater, whatever you want, whatever word you want to use, would come out of this, but that's a good thing. It's a very, very, very good thing. But at the end of the day, we are lawyers. I'm a lawyer. And like in any matter, when you want to get a definitive position, it's no good to say, oh, well, in 2022, yes, we had an issue and the teacher and them, they fighting, but nothing came of it. And yes, they went, so we don't want to do that. We want to get a definitive position for all of us, for the party. And some people may not appreciate it at this point because whatever reason they have, I'm not going to speculate. But, at the end of the day, when the history, a few years from now, we hope, maybe not too many, few years from now, people would say, you know what, the PNM really stands for respect for the rule of law. And that's why we have our hierarchy. We go from High Court to Court of Appeal and Privy Council. And that's the reason it exists. I myself, in my medical negligence case, I was taken right through to the Privy Council, and it took them 17 years, but that's another story in and of itself. And we spoke about it already. So I respected the court system, as difficult as it was for me, and I respected it, and I hope that we will respect what we are doing now. And hopefully Trinidad and Tobago and other parties and all of us will benefit from the ultimate decision, whatever it will be. But certainly we are not prepared to accept a decision, with all due respect to the judge, because it seems to fly in the face of his own decision that we had a good case, a serious case. He didn't say arguable. I heard one of the newspapers, I haven't read any newspapers today, but somebody told me that they reported, not in the papers, but on the TV, an arguable case. He did not use the word arguable case. He used a serious case.
Yeah, he said it was an issue to be tried.
Yeah, and he said it was a serious, case. He didn't just say a case to be tried. He said a serious case to be tried. So that adjective adds weight to what we're doing. And end of the day, it's no disrespect to any judge. It's part of our judicial system. And end of the day, we want people to know this is the substance of the case has not been decided. The judge, for his own reasons, and I will respect him, made his decision, but we are going to appeal it because we don't see that it is supported by the case law.
All right, so when the General Secretary is reported in the paper there this morning, saying we can now move forward towards the much anticipated internal elections of the PNM, I think you would say not so fast.
No. No. It's going to go ahead. We can't. I mean, even if I can't. I would love to think that it will go through so fast that if it has to go to Privy Council, it will be here before that. But I really, I would say at the end of the day, regardless of the fact that we may not get the decision before, I think it has caused persons to come out of their slumber, so to speak, to make people more aware, so to speak. And if that, at this point in time, is what we have been able to achieve, when we have to take that as our small victory, and I can assure you there are many, 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 many people, I don't know if they can vote, I don't know if they're members, but I can assure you that there are many people who see the injustice of the system and see that they feel that something is not right. Why would you do that? They just don't accept the rationale, because in fact, the highest number of persons who ever voted in a PNM internal election was 19,000 people. EBC has hundreds of thousands. So they just do not accept the rationale that has been given. And this putting away the boxes and not counting. I think a lot of people, we underestimate the intelligence of people. And I think they understand that we have raised issues, they brought things to the fore, and it has brought into the public domain concerns about how the internal elections are being conducted, not only the PNM, I believe, I'm sure it's other parties, but I'm dealing with our party. And what it does is put them on alert and it also puts the country on alert that maybe something may be awry. So from that point of view, I hope it makes them more vigilant, whatever the outcome is. But at the end of the day, we believe that we shouldn't be there about winning or losing something. We should be about what we say we are about. Else, then what are we about? We're just about, okay, proving that we could win. No. We want to do the right thing and be responsible to the party and to the country.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're going to leave it there. There's more to be gone into, and we try for another time as this matter goes on, because there are people who are saying that what you're doing is the right thing, but you went about it in the wrong way. You should have fought it inside the General Council and so on and so on.
I'm not a member of the General Council. I'm not a member of the Central Executive. Yeah. I do have a toe in. You see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And I guess they want to make sure I'm not, because once I get my foot in there, then I will be able to do the things that I would like to do. So once they keep me out, which is, I think, the intention, all due respect, that's politics. The intention is to keep me out because I don't think they want me in. And they don't want me in because of the things I have said. And they don't want me to upset the apple cart and to change the way things are done. And I would do it because that's why I did not.
Right, but
that's
as an ordinary member,
let me just say, that's why I did not, and contrary to, at 95.5, I saw it for the first time the other day. Never been invited, but that is why I, taking this decision was not about Karen Teixeira, but it is about the party. And at the end of the day, we hope that the party will understand that. But, it's politics and they play the politics. And I'm not surprised at anything they will say. And it just reinforces why we need change. They don't want me in there. Because if I went inside there, I can assure you, one thing I will make sure that we do get is that we get campaign finance reform. We're going to get that.
All right.
And they don't want me in there.
Much more to be discussed. But thank you very much for now.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Karen Teixeira, thank you very much. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we probably take you around the region, or we go to our discussion with Ms. Grace Lefori and continue that discussion about the absence of planning permission taking place with construction all over the country. That is a major contributor to flooding in different parts of the country. Stay with us. This is AM Prime here on WESN.
Whether it's your family meet and eat, or your own personal getaway retreat, a business trip accommodation, or a couple's celebration, the Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa has room for you. There's always sumptuous, delicious cuisine, and the gym and tennis court for a good workout routine. Then relax by the pool or on the private beach, or just head to the spa. It's also within reach. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Tobago's best beach resort. For reservations, call 639-8571 or check our website.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Make every occasion a sparkling celebration with Rosabella alcohol-free wine.
Toast cheers with hourglass rings. Rosabella, live life with Rosabella sparkling drink. Celebrate.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Your Christmas is safe with us at BC. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at BC. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to the program. Let's take a quick look at what's happening around the region and some of the spots. We're starting with St. Lucia, where they say that housing construction along the coastline of that country has traditionally provided visitors with direct access to the beauty of the natural environment there. This report is about that from MBC Prime.
The threat posed by climate change to small island developing states like St. Lucia and the need for external support in mitigating against its effects is a refrain continuously sounded by senior officials on local and international platforms. With weather events directly impacting St. Lucia's natural environment and the product of sand and sea forming a pillar of the island's tourism industry, questions on whether a need exists to evolve to ensure survival have been raised. In a conversation with CEO of the SLHTA, Noorani Aziz, held after recent swells proved detrimental to hotel accommodation properties on island, he provided an update on the status of the association's members.
We have done an assessment of the damage that has been done, and for many of our operators it did set us back a couple of days, but I'm happy to report that 99.9% of the operators who were damaged are up and ready to do business, and this is as a result of the tremendous work on the part of our team members. Persons worked day and night to ensure that rooms were gutted, rooms were cleaned, experts were brought in to sanitize, and that we're ready for business. And I'm very proud to say that as a destination, we're open for business, notwithstanding the impact of the floods on our communities and some persons who are very near to our team members. We're working internally to identify these individuals specifically and to release waves of financing through our Tourism Enhancement Fund to provide food, clothing, and in some instances shelter for those persons who have been hardest hit.
According to Aziz, while the effects of the November 6 trough proved damaging, it should serve as a call to action.
It brings home the reality that climate change is a phenomenon that we have to contend with. And so it means for me that it serves as a call to action for the private sector and our citizens to look at our waste disposal habits, what kind of carbon footprint we leave, how we build our communities and how we build our infrastructure so that our country is more resilient, and what we do on a day-to-day business to ply our trade and to earn our living is more sustainable. So if we all put our shoulders to the wheel and treat this as a serious call to action, I believe that we'll be able to accelerate that pace of change that will allow our country to be more resilient to these natural shocks.
The need to rethink tourism emerged as a recent theme of the 2022 observance of World Tourism Day on September 27th. One key principle invoked by the global theme is sustainable development within the industry and creating awareness, discouraging activities responsible for global warming. With tourism accommodation properties often established in coastline locations, positions of increasing vulnerability to rising tides, Aziz addressed the question of whether relocating such properties may be imminent.
The reality is that the business establishments that find themselves very close to shore have some reality checks to explore right now. How they safeguard their enterprises, the impact of insurance costs on their readiness to do business, business decisions that they have to make internally. As a country, indeed, we have to take a stronger look at our building codes. We have to look more closely at where we build our communities as well, in how we build out livelihoods that are very dependent on entities along the shoreline. And so we have to take a very strong look at these systems because what has allowed us to progress over the past 45, 50 years is going to have to change radically to allow us to progress over the next 50 years.
The SLHTA CEO notes adjustments will be required to keep up with ongoing changes.
So much is changing, not only ecologically or climate-wise, but the way we do business is changing. The opportunities in the world of work that's emerging for our young people is changing. Therefore, the things we have done traditionally to plan for retirement are being flipped on their heads right now. And we have to take stock of that. So even within the association of the SLHTA, that reality and that preparation, that strategy and those discussions are guided by our internal Human Resource Advisory Committee, on which we have over 25 human resource development and management experts from within the industry representing the biggest brands, providing guidance and support to the Secretariat.
Looking to the future, Aziz notes that strategies embraced to address climate change and other challenges need to be made in the best interest of all.
All right, so to Jamaica now, where the Prime Minister has outlined some new details about a new plan to fight crime in that country. We have a report from TVJ.
The Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, on Sunday went into great detail about the government's crime plan. He indicated a maximum security prison will be built that is cut off from certain technology so that criminals can't interact with the outer world in order to put out murders and other crime requests. Now, Dwayne Anderson listened to the speech and has this report.
The party atmosphere inside the National Arena reached fever pitch when Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his wife, Member of Parliament Juliet Holness, shared this lighter moment, which was sealed with a kiss. Then it was back to more serious business, chief among them crime. Mr. Holness gave an update on the gun amnesty, which ended Saturday.
Over 90 weapons were turned in with over 2,500 rounds of ammunition. Let me tell you, this surprised me. I didn't expect so many.
The exact number of guns surrendered during the amnesty is still to be clarified, but what is clear is that thousands of illegal weapons are still in the hands of criminals. It is why Mr. Holness said the government will continue to reward whistleblowers who share information with the police that lead to the seizure of guns. And as it relates to a potential increase in people being placed behind bars for illegal guns, Mr. Holness explained that plans are well advanced for a new prison.
It has been on the books for some time, but we just didn't finalize the plans and the cost. I have given instructions that the high security facility with a communications dead spot be built. We will have a prison with a communication dead spot that we can put our high-valued criminals in terms, they are not high-value, they are no value. But our high-risk criminals, we can put them in facilities where they cannot influence crime and murders.
Last week, the Prime Minister declared several states of emergency across 10 police divisions, and Mr. Holness insists the measures are working.
Yesterday, 4 murders occurred in Jamaica. 4. 1 was by the gun. 3 by stabbings. Already, the measures are having an impact.
He therefore called on the PNP to assist in making the measures even more effective.
We see the current levels of murder as an emergency, and we invite the opposition to share this perspective in having the recently declared state of public emergency extended.
All right, we go further afield now. We're going to France, and they said that the head of the French Overseas Department, Mayotte, has said the island was on the edge of civil war following days of violence between rival gangs. Have a report on that.
A garage engulfed in flames with dozens of cars inside. It's an example of escalating violence between rival gangs in Mayotte. Some residents say they've been terrified by run-ins with gang members.
When I arrived, I was just 30 meters away. I saw guys with machetes, stones and pistols. I saw a house they had set on fire.
When it starts to feel like a war, we can't stand it anymore. The situation in Mayotte is terrible.
The conflict has been centered in Mamoudzou, the capital of the Indian Ocean island. The situation degenerated on November 12 when a 20-year-old man was killed by a rival gang. Since then, the city has been rocked by stabbings and violent attacks. This motorist was injured when a group of young people approached him.
When they came towards us, they started to get aggressive. They wanted to set fire to the car. They took all there was to take. I gave it away, and they still didn't leave.
Dozens of additional police officers have been sent to the island, but elected officials and unions are demanding permanent military or police reinforcements.
We go to Germany now, where they began their path to the World Cup redemption on Wednesday after the 2018 horror show in Russia, with Spain and Croatia also kicking off their campaigns in Qatar. Hear this report.
Selena, Germany looking to redeem themselves after what was a rather embarrassing showing back in 2018.
That's right, Alison, as you said, the Germans are really trying to right the wrongs of what was a catastrophic World Cup campaign for them in 2018. They came to Russia as the holders and crashed out at the first hurdle, coming bottom of their group. They were beaten by South Korea and Mexico. They also had a rather disappointing Euro campaign last year. They were knocked out in the last 16 by England. The four-time world champions are ranked at 13 places higher than the Japanese, but as the manager Hansi Flick said, nobody should be underestimated at this World Cup, as we saw yesterday with that shock result as Saudi Arabia beats Messi's Argentina. There's a lot of international experience combined with youthful talent in this squad, though they have had some erratic form as of late. Timo Werner is out with injuries, so Kai Havertz will be taking the number 9 position. There's no Leroy Sané for today's game. He picked up an injury in training, so we'll be looking to also Thomas Müller and Serge Gnabry, who can also contribute goals for this German side.
And meanwhile, Selena, hopes are quite high among the Japanese fans that you've been speaking to.
Yeah, that's right. And there's actually 8 players in the Japanese squad who play in Germany, so they'll be definitely looking to take advantage of that, including the captain, Maya Yoshida, who plays for Schalke. Japan are becoming regulars at the World Cup. This is their 7th consecutive competition, and as you said, hopes are really very high here for the Japanese team. We've seen lots of fans out in full force on the way to the game here. They've never managed to make it past the last 16, so a quarterfinals really is the goal for them. Back in 2018, they were knocked out in the last 16. They gave Belgium, though, a good run for their money. They were eventually beaten 3-2 by the Red Devils. So lots of expectations here, though it has to be said it's a very tough task for the Japanese. They are in this group with 2 big European giants, obviously their first opponents, Germany and Spain. So the captain's saying that they're going to need a lot of courage if they are to make it out of this group, and they'll need some big performances here.
Well, we'll go to break and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. BCU. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Make every occasion a sparkling celebration with Rosabella alcohol-free wine.
Toast cheers with hourglass rays. Rosabella, live life with taste. Rosabella sparkling drink. Celebrate.
The best free tickets are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Bobby, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
I'm joined on set today with Dr. Chelsea Garcia. She's a palliative specialist as well as internal medicine doctor as well as hospice care.
Palliative is for anyone with serious illness, whereas hospice is for someone that may die in the next 6 months. Now, unfortunately, because people confuse the word palliative with hospice, we see a lot of patients presenting late in the course of their illness.
So the first part about holding out the stick is knowing how to hold it. You're only allowed to play with the flat side of the stick. So the ball is not allowed to hit the back of your stick whatsoever.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
head up to the top of the hour. Let's go there with this international feature again. When the COVID-19 pandemic put a temporary stop to tourism, some hotels in the French capital, Paris, were turned into homes for families in need. Take a look at this.
When the COVID-19 pandemic halted the world and put a temporary stop to tourism, this Parisian hotel was turned into a home for many families in need. However, now these families are being forced out with no suitable alternatives.
Did you catch cold? Did you and your children sleep on the streets?
Several weeks ago, Aminata and her 3 children had to leave the room they were occupying. While the children are at school, she comes in front of the hotel to seek help from the support committee dedicated to fighting their evictions. Now that countries have reopened to tourism, hotels want to return to business as usual. In Paris alone, this means that 2,500 people have to leave what has been their homes for 2 years.
Where were you assigned housing after you left this place?
In Montreuil, I tried to explain that my children's school and nursery school were located inside Paris, but the authorities did not give a damn.
The proposed accommodation was so unsanitary that Aminata prefers to sleep in the streets.
It was filthy. There were cockroaches and bed bugs. And I filmed them. I'm so stressed and tired. We have been sleeping outside in the streets for 2 weeks.
This volunteer calls the French hotline number dedicated to finding emergency housing to try and find a solution.
We're talking about a mother who says that her children's living conditions are not acceptable. Do you really not have anything available? Even something extremely short-term? Just for a few days?
Distraught, Aminata ends up leaving with no idea where she and her children will spend the night. Meanwhile, at the Exelmans Hotel, other families have been put up here for the time being. However, this building is scheduled for demolition and has been closed for months prior to the families being assigned here.
We can't sleep here. I bought all kinds of products, including bleach and more, but it's never clean. There are lots of mice and roaches here. It's too much. I've had to buy bags to put all our stuff and protect them. The mice have eaten through everything, even our children's belongings. We bought 2 suitcases to protect our children's stuff in the closet.
In the other room where the family sleeps, the situation is not any better.
There are mice everywhere. The kids have no space, and there are bugs in the carpet, which stinks.
On another floor, Nawa and Ibrahima, parents of 2 little girls, are in the same situation. However, Ibrahima is frustrated because he works and has income.
I filed my housing application on the 31st of May 2022. However, it still hasn't been looked at yet. So I don't know. I have a good salary. It's not much, but I earn 1,500 euros. So surely this could allow me to have a home for my children.
France has a legal mechanism which allows people to assert their right to social housing. 20 to 25% of people in emergency housing are eligible for social accommodations. In this office, activists are trying to help the homeless or those in bad housing situations with their applications.
What is your current situation?
Currently, I bounce around.
So you do not have a place to live. It's called being homeless, without stable accommodation. How long have you been waiting for social housing?
Since at least 2016.
You meet 2 criteria. Waiting for social housing for an unusually long time and are in an urgent situation. The reality is that there is not enough social housing. While waiting for housing, apart from being on the street, people have limited options such as couch surfing or shelters. In the same way that there is not enough social housing, there are not enough shelters. The snake is biting its own tail. People are in emergency shelters because they are waiting for housing. But there is no housing.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Sangre Grande Regional Corporation distributes sandbags. Attorney calls on public to be mindful of speculating on Commission of Inquiry. TT referee makes World Cup debut on Friday. And internationally, protests erupt at iPhone factory. Now for the details. The Sangre Grande Regional Corporation Disaster Management Unit's sandbag distribution is ongoing. The office is advising that sandbags are available for collection at the office at Churro Road, Sangre Grande. Sand is also pre-positioned at several locations in the Sangre Grande region. This week thus far, several areas including Manzanilla experienced severe flooding and land slippage, which resulted in the roadway being partially impassable. Attorney at Law Martin George is pleading with the public, including the media, to not become lost in the coverage of the Paria Commission of Inquiry, so the issue at hand will not be lost.
The blame game that it is playing out as in the national media, it does no good, certainly for the families of the victims. It does no good for, the public perception of how this is like two titans, slugging it out. And it appears that, in all of this, the persons who are the true victims are being sidelined, in the sense that, you ask yourself, what is the purpose of, this public showdown?
In some sports news now, Trinidad and Tobago's Caleb Wales will be involved in his first World Cup 2022 match as assistant referee. The match between the Wales and Iran is scheduled to take place at 6 a.m. Trinidad and Tobago time on Friday. In international news, protests have erupted at the world's biggest iPhone factory in the Chinese city of Zhangzhou, according to footage circulated widely online. Videos shows hundreds of workers marching, with some confronted by people in hazmat suits and riot police. Those live streaming the protests said workers were beaten by police. Video also showed clashes. Manufacturer Foxconn said it would work with staff and local government to prevent further violence. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
We welcome back our viewers to the program AM Prime here on WESN. Let's tell you what's happening in this half hour. Germany, it had vowed to fight hard at the COP27, which was just concluded. The climate talks for a pathway to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The foreign minister of that country, Annalena Baerbock, said on Thursday at the summit in Egypt. Speaking with reporters, she also said that the country wanted an effective tool for quote-unquote loss and damage financing for countries ravaged by climate impacts, a core demand from developing countries such as ours. And on that basis, we're talking now with the German ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, Madame Ute Konig. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about that. So did it happen in the way that you all expected it would happen?
Well, we think it's a COP with light and shadow, but we had a breakthrough on a new funding mechanism for loss and damages. This is the first time after 30 years that this has been discussed, that there was a decision taken in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that was really something we are very, very glad about. Of course, it's only the first step in a long way. The details of the fund that is to be set up will have to be discussed. They will set up a transitional committee that will have to deliver a report. So the question of who will be paying into that fund and of what amounts is still open. But it's very clear that this is a fund that is aimed at the most vulnerable countries. There were a lot of discussions in Sharm el-Sheikh of who would be eligible. The group of the G77 wanted it to be all the G77, and my minister was quite clear also that we think that, especially with regard to China, they are now one of the leading emitters, and even though they are in some old documents still listed as a developing country, we must fight climate change now with looking at the present situation while not neglecting the historic responsibility. But it's also clear that the new fund will not only have public money, so we also hope that more private companies, that private capital will also see their responsibility and will also contribute. But it was a great first step, and that was good. But my minister also said that gives hope, but there was also some frustration. On some parts we would have aimed for more, but this is an ongoing process.
Yeah, so let me get your position on it, because coming into this COP27, the view was that what was agreed to in COP26 in Scotland didn't happen in the way that it was going to happen. But so how sanguine are people to believe that well, therefore what is agreed to in Sharm el-Sheikh will in fact happen?
It's a process, and we know especially that the promise of the 100 million was not met in 2020. We came up to 83 million. So sometimes it's a long way, but I think this COP gained trust again with setting up and for the first time addressing this question of loss and damages. It's also good that for the first time in the document we are talking about renewable energies. It's true we would have wished more on the going out of fossil fuels, but the decisions that were taken in Glasgow were confirmed. We would have liked sometimes to go ahead, to move further over Glasgow, but the decisions of Glasgow are still in place, and we are still talking about phasing out coal. But we all have to see that this COP was also held in the geopolitical context we are in. So since the Ukraine war, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine since the 21st of February, energy questions have taken a different term. And even Germany, we are one on the forefront of fighting climate change, and we have a Green Party in our government which talks a lot about sustainable energy. We were using coal again to get energy for our winter. But we all know that it's a long way to go, and this will be a good starting point now.
You said earlier that in some respects China is still regarded as one of the, was it ever one of the G77? Because the G77, my understanding is that was a group of developing countries, right?
No, the G77 are the non-developed country. The G20 are the developed more.
Yeah, so the developing countries, right. And so China was included in that at some point, but now you're saying that they ought to graduate out of that into being a developed industrialized country.
It's a question of who can draw funds from the new fund for loss of damages.
Yes.
And there it was made clear that it would be only for really vulnerable countries, and we don't consider China to be so vulnerable. And of course, it's a question of who is willing to contribute to the fund, and there we think all emitters and private entities should contribute to the fund. But this will be ongoing discussions, but we have a first groundbreaking decision and we will build on that. Germany will be hosting a Petersberg climate dialogue next week. Here again, we do this every year to prepare for the issues of the next COP. We are already in close consultation with the United Arab Emirates. They will be hosting the next COP. And of course, they are also an oil-producing country, but they are also hosting the seat of IRENA, the Institute for Renewable Energy. So a lot of discussions will to be continued there.
All right, explain what this term loss and damage really is and is about.
Well, we know that there are countries that are affected by droughts, by the loss of land, and these are damages. And if you have a flooding, like for example in Pakistan, that's also related to the changes in climate. You have terrible losses of life. You have damages from the water, the forces of nature that destroy houses. So it's still a vague term, but I think everybody from his normal way of life has an idea of what kind of catastrophes can cause losses and damages, not just in private households, but this time affecting whole countries and populations.
Yeah, and so
we set up a whole new financial architecture in Sharm el-Sheikh. Yeah, the fund for loss and damages is one thing, but I want to make sure that, you know, the G7 and the German Chancellor, we also proposed something which is a global shield, where we already contributed money, and this is more like an additional risk insurance also to prevent catastrophes, not to react just after it, but also to have measures to prevent certain catastrophes. So it's the term that was used at the end in the press conferences in Sharm a lot was the term mosaic. So it's a big picture, and there are a lot of small pieces that form part of this mosaic. So this new fund for loss of damages is one, but we also have to continue to work on the adaptation, on the mitigation. We have to sharpen the national plans on NDCs, how to reach our goal of halving emissions by 2030. Germany, for example, wants to be having an energy transition that will allow us to stay an industrialized country, but relying on renewable energy.
Yeah, and so Germany is taking a lead in terms of assisting countries in this part of the world and addressing that issue with loss and damage financing.
Yes, we will continue to push for that and push for good discussions on loss and damages.
I want to take us back to the beginning of this COP27, which the UN Secretary General said that he described the world as we on a highway to climate disaster and our feet are firmly planted on the accelerator, and other things which you said there, which made it sound kind of almost doomsday, given one would say the sort of rising of hope that came out of COP26. So we're going into COP27 with a sense of almost despair. Did you see it that way?
I saw that the language was very, very, well, how should I say it, non-diplomatic, but he was using very, very strong language, the Secretary General. He was talking of a pathway to hell and on the policy being on life support. But as I say, I think there is still some hope, and we did not lose sight of the 1.7 goal. We would have wished for some stronger languages, yes, and I can tell you that especially from not just some members of the German government were a bit disappointed by the results and openly expressed it, but also climate activists in Germany say we need more. But that's the good thing, that everybody continues to push. And I think this year we have seen a lot of catastrophes that have also brought things to mind. And we have also seen moves from actors. We were very glad that the United States and China were talking again in Sharm el-Sheikh. And I think that the US government, President Biden, came to Sharm el-Sheikh and he announced new measure. India announced new measure. So it's a long haul, and we know that every 10th of a degree we can fight and we can avoid will help us in the long run. But it's not something you will achieve with one conference. As I said, the question of loss and damages has been discussed for 30 years. But we all know that this decade is critical. So if you use strong language, it's just to make the sense of urgency clear to everyone. And we have seen that changes in government in the United States changed policy dramatically. So you always have to be aware that changes are possible again in democracies, and strong language sometimes also help to raise more awareness. The situation in Egypt for the COP was different from Copenhagen because it was much harder for many members of the civil society to participate. The Egyptian government was not allowing them access the same way we had in Glasgow. So this sometimes also affects negotiations and the outcome. But I think all in all, especially for the small island states and the IOSIS members, they also all appreciated what has been agreed on loss and damages.
Right, because there's one, some views were that I read a sort of recollection of what took place, an analysis by someone who said that in the first place, there were too many people there for any significant decisions to have been arrived at.
Well, the COP is always a huge gathering. I've never been there, but I know the pictures, and still you can discuss whether you can have climate neutral conferences, and many people are flying to a place. But this has been the story of COP for a long time, and a part of this we also think that technology will evolve. So we are in a critical decade, and there has to be more innovation. And yesterday evening, I was in Trinidad at the launch of a methanol ship. So methanol is also a fuel of the future. And the Prime Minister was announcing great hopes for Trinidad to be a hub for ships that will fuel up with methanol in the future. So we are exploring new technologies, new ways, also new energy ways, but the COP is still the way to go forward. So the next COP in Dubai will continue on the questions we have. And in the meantime, I know that all the countries have internal discussions on what they can do more. We will explore new laws. We passed new laws so that our solar and wind plants can get their permits much quicker so that we can increase our solar power. And here in Trinidad, I know you're also approaching more solar power. So it's small steps the whole world is taken, but we still have not lost sight of the end of all fossil fuels in the future.
All right, so the goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, that is still within reach. It is not out of possibility. Because that was one of the...
It was reiterated as a goal, but of course I know that there are scientists saying it's getting later and later by the day, but I still stick to my hope, yes.
Yeah, and is there a way in which Germany has undertaken committed to assisting Caribbean countries on that question about the financing for some of this, for loss and damage financing?
Well, on the details of the loss and damages, the situation is now starting, but we are having regional development cooperation with CARICOM, and that has always been on renewable energy and energy efficiency. We're having projects under our International Climate Initiative that is helping certain Caribbean countries to work on their NDC plans in the transport sector. So there are support programs, but they are like German development programs. They are not yet under the new fund to be created. But every little step and every program, of course, helps.
I know you probably didn't have this in mind, but I just wanted to see what your comments might be on the fact that, that evening last week that we met the dysfunction, that is the EU delegates that had come to Trinidad. There's a delegation for Latin America and the Caribbean, or for the Caribbean per se. What are some of the things that that is leading to, as best as you are in a position to divulge some of that?
No, of course, Germany is an EU member. We are also members of COLAC, and the EU was also very, very vital in agreeing these results in the COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, so that the COLAC came here to Trinidad and to Barbados and St. Lucia also shows that they place a high importance on this region. I think this was the first time we had such a visit here, and this shows that they want to get first-hand experience from first-hand contacts with ministers, not just through the reports of their members, and hear on the ground how the situation is, what's troubling you, what's worrying you. And I think the EU is also on the forefront in the fight against climate change. They were talking about the Global Goal Initiative. Europe and the EU, we are having the ambition of being the first climate neutral country. There are new programs. The Green Deal is on offer, and only in October we had a commissioner in Barbados where we were launching a new EU-Caribbean partnership with certain projects on offer. So I think also this visit of the COLAC to Trinidad and Barbados and St. Lucia also is part of the bigger mosaic that we all have to work together to combine our forces in this fight against climate change.
Yeah, and of course COLAC stands for the Council at the EU for Latin America and the Caribbean. Is that it?
Yes. Yes. They meet regularly once a week and have in-depth discussions, and they had 1 week free, and they took use of that to come to the Caribbean.
Yeah. All right. So it's safe and correct to say that sort of Germany is kind of out front as a partner within the EU on this question of helping Caribbean countries to meet the objectives that are set for us regarding climate change and matters incidental thereto.
Yes, it's correct. We are putting great emphasis on our climate foreign policy, and we have a new special envoy for climate issues question, and she was leading the discussions and negotiations before the arrival of my minister, and she was well known also to the negotiator from Trinidad, Kishan Kumar Singh, because she has been, let me say, on the other side of the agenda for long years. She was the head of Greenpeace for a long time, so she knows how climate COPs work. I think there are a few people who have attended all COPs since the beginning, but Jennifer Morgan, our climate envoy, and Kishan Kumar Singh, I think, are amongst them.
Yeah, so he's our sort of climate change guru, Kishan Kumar Singh.
Yes, and Germany has a female guru now.
Yes. Ambassador Ute Koenig, thank you very much for talking with us on this. But let me, before I let you go, so what's next? What should we look for happening as a development out of this collaboration?
Well, honestly, next for Germany, we have to beat Spain on Sunday. That's most important on every German's mind. After COP27, currently we're looking at the Soccer World Cup 22. No, but the Transitional Committee to discuss the loss and damages fund, I think the names have to be put down till the 15th of December. And then I think the first meetings will be set up early next year, and then we will see how quickly this report is being stretched out. Thank you.
Yeah, so Spain is racking up goals at the World Cup, setting records. I mean,
yes. Yes,
you will have to
will
stop
be a hard match for us, but we'll try our best.
Thank you very much. Well, best of luck with that. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We will take a break and come back before we wrap up. This is AM Prime. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, eating accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at Southern Main Road, MacBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Back as we head down to the bottom of the hour, let's just tell you what's in the papers today. In the news, the headline is Hope for Justice. That's the widow of one of the men who lost their lives in that matter, which is now the subject of this commission of inquiry taking place. The question is, what is justice in this case? We want to find out. Also, Manzanilla and the Manzanilla-Mayari Road has been closed, as well as the SS Arien Road temporarily closed because of impacts of the weather and breaking in the roadway, its roadways themselves. So that's among other things in there. We just want to ask you to watch this. On Wednesday, the first Cedar Grove Cub Pack and students from Cedar Grove Private School in Palm East in San Fernando sang Christmas carols as they blessed and unveiled the school's creche. Take a look at this as we head down to the bottom of the hour. that's our broadcast for this edition of the program. We tell you, you can get in touch with us here at AM Prime at WESNCC on all our social media platforms. You can send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. Well, at the top of the hour, we have news on the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. But for now, thanks for watching. I'm Andy Johnson. We see you tomorrow.
WESN